The Roman Catholic Bishop of Down and Connor condemns the murder of a policeman in Belfast, and he calls on the terrorists to repudiate their heinous sin. In a strongly worded statement, the bishop, Dr. William Philbin, said unless the murderers repented, they would incur the eternal punishment that God had ordained for what they had done. The Provisional IRA say they carried out the attack early this morning that killed Constable William Coulter and injured 2 of his colleagues. P.C. Coulter was 23 and joined the RUC just 5 months ago. His wife is expecting their first child on Christmas Day. From Belfast, Chris Moore reports.
The explosion happened at the Catholic Unity Flats, a flashpoint in the past where there have been clashes with Protestants from the nearby Shankill Road. Patrols set up to stop those clashes often changed over at the same spot at the flats. Last night, members of the patrols were standing on the pavement chatting when the bomb, hidden behind hoarding, was detonated by remote control. Immediately after the explosion, the police say people from the flats cheered and began stoning the injured blown into the roadway and other policemen trying to give them first aid. It was nearly 3 hours later before Constable Coulter's body was removed. Daylight revealed the full extent of the damage caused by the explosion. Constable Coulter was standing at this side of the Land Rover and was nearest the bomb. He was the 13th full-time policeman to be killed by terrorists this year. 8 reservists have also died.
In Glasgow, Protestant loyalists have been taking part in a march. They then attended a rally which was addressed by the Reverend Ian Paisley. Michael Cole was there.
1,500 Scottish loyalists with their flags and drums followed Ian Paisley through Glasgow to demonstrate solidarity with Ulster while he laid a wreath in memory of the Reverend Robert Bradford. Mr. Paisley's other purpose was to justify his third force, though to this audience, such justification was superfluous.
The third force is legal and nobody can do anything about it. Is it not your right to come to the aid of your neighbour when he needs to be defended? And that's all we're doing. The people of Northern Ireland have been butchered. The outlying Protestant families in the border areas. There's 70 unsolved murders in the county Fermanagh alone.
With a warning against the Pope's visit next year, Mr. Paisley then left to lay a church foundation stone in Londonderry.
South African ministers have denied that their government was involved in the attempt to overthrow the Seychelles government. The suggestion arose because South Africans were among 44 mercenaries arrested from a hijacked airliner at Durban after the attempted coup. It was foiled when guns were found hidden in suitcases. South Africa's government is angry at being involved and worried that guns may have been moved secretly through South Africa. A government source there says several Britons were among the arrested mercenaries, including Colonel Mad Mike Hoare, the Congo veteran.
The name of Mad Mike Hoare, the legendary African mercenary, first came up as one of the veterans who turned down the Seychelles contract. But now it appears that the 62-year-old former British Army major and a freelance press photographer called Peter Duffy, who was Mike Hoare's quartermaster during the Congo mercenary days in the 1960s, were both on the hijacked Boeing used to escape when the coup attempt was bungled. Mrs. Sally Hoare insists that her husband is away on a private fishing trip, but the South African sources say her husband, whose experiences formed the basis of the Hollywood film Wild Geese, is being questioned at a prison near Pretoria.
The New Zealand general election has ended in stalemate, with no one party able to field a majority. It's the first time in 60 years that elections there have produced a hung parliament. However, the present Prime Minister, Robert Muldoon, says he'll continue to govern. His National Party won 46 seats. Labour made some gains, but not enough. The balance is held by the middle-of-the-road Social Credit Party. Jim Biddulph has been following the campaign.
Mr. Muldoon seems confident that he can still run New Zealand, but he'll be outnumbered by a combined opposition once he's appointed as Speaker. When New Zealanders voted in this election, more than 20% of them opted for a third force party, Social Credit. But all those votes only produced 2 seats. Social Credit leader Bruce Beetham now holds the balance of power, and he's opposed to many Muldoon policies. It's all a bitter disappointment for Labour's Bill Rowling, who'd hoped for a landslide victory. but he could get another chance within months.
All the signs are there that New Zealand has delivered itself the worst possible of all options, and that is a hung parliament. And I think that's a very bad state of affairs for this country, given the situation we've got at the moment.
Mr. Tony Benn has attacked the integrity of the four leaders of the Social Democratic Party. Speaking at a miners' rally in Sheffield, Mr. Benn said they owed everything to the working people who struggled to put them in Parliament, and then they'd use their public reputations to destroy the Labour Party that had worked for them. ITN say they'll be back on the air tonight after an 8-day strike. The dispute involving videotape editors has just been settled. The arbitration service, ACAS, brought the two sides together this morning, and after 6 hours of talks, they reached a settlement. Police in the Midlands are searching near Birmingham for a 13-year-old schoolboy who disappeared on his way home last night. John Haddon hasn't been seen since he set off to cycle from school in Sutton Coldfield across Sutton Park to his home in Coppersview Road. John has never been missing before, and there's concern for him. He was riding a black cycle with drop handlebars and short aluminium mudguards when he left the Bishop Vasey School for home, a distance of 1.25 miles. Volunteers, including boys from John's own school, turned out in answer to local radio and television appeals to help in the search, and the police were using dogs. They have a big area to search, 2,400 acres of park, including a lake. After dominating every match they've played so far on their tour of India, England's cricketers are in trouble after the second day of the Bombay Test match. They dismissed India for 179, but were then skittled out, 13 runs short of the target. Only Chris Tavares and Jeff Boycott made significant contributions. Both made patient half-centuries. Mike Blakey reports.
Boycott put up the 50, but the first 2 hours play produced only 49 runs. His 50 had taken him over 3 hours, and it came off 52 overs. Azad came into the attack, and the long, patient innings of Boycott was over. Srikanth took the catch, and Boycott was out for 60, a valuable if slow knock for England. There hadn't been much excitement on the field, but the firecrackers began to explode as Boycott left. Gow wasn't there long to entertain the crowd. He went for a quick single and was stranded as Srikanth threw down the wicket. He'd made only 5, and England were 105 for 3. So now it was the turn of Keith Fletcher, whose father had travelled so far to see him. But he'd made only 15 when he was beaten by the spin of Doshi, LBW, and that was 131 for 4, and England was still 48 behind the Indian total. Ian Botham wanted 23 more runs to reach the milestone of 2,000 test runs and 200 wickets. But he too was deceived by the spin of Doshi, and Kamani took a simple catch. Half the England side had gone for 143. And the spinner Doshi struck again. This time it was Tavares who was deceived, and the ball went straight to Shastri. Tavares had scored 56, and it was 146 for 6, and India were back in the match. Doshi had the batsman in a daze. Emdir was the next to face him. LBW again, and that was the end of Emdir for a duck, and England were in real trouble at 147 for 7. Kepil Dev came back as Underwood was staging recovery with Taylor. A brilliant catch by Kamani, and England were down to their last man. Doshi finished with 5 for 39 as he took the wicket of Bob Willis. England were all out for 166, 13 runs behind at the end of the second day.
That's all for now. I'll be back at 9:30.